The Houston Texans aren't bringing back Stefon Diggs. He's headed to New England with the Patriots, up to $69 million for the veteran wide receiver. Just over a third of that guaranteed to Diggs, who's coming off a major knee injury. Now, I didn't want the Texans to bring Stefon Diggs back. I'm worried about his recovery from the knee injury. And you can see with the New England Patriots, it's a long-term investment on Diggs. And should it pay off, well, they'll have a solid player for Drake May to grow with. But the Texans shouldn't have been in on bringing back Stefon Diggs. So I'm fine with him going to New England Patriots, certainly at that financial commitment. But there's a lesson to be learned from the Stefon Diggs situation as a whole by Nick Caserio and the Texans. And I would say this to get the lesson started. I was in favor of what Nick Caserio did. He traded a future second-round pick that could not help the Texans in any way, shape, or form in 2024. He traded that future second-round pick, an extra second-round pick that he had. He traded that pick for Stefon Diggs, and when they adjusted the contract, made it very clear that was a move for the 2024 season. Stefon Diggs turned his multi-year deal into basically a one-year contract. The Texans were on board with it. They got what they wanted at the time, which was a hungry, ready to prove himself, bounce back from some of the poor finish to the 2023 season Stefon Diggs, and a veteran wide receiver presence for that wide receiver room. And Diggs got an opportunity on a pretty good football team to showcase that he's still got it. The Texans got what they wanted out of that trade when they made the trade. And it looked like it was working out pretty well for the Texans in 2024 until Stefon Diggs went down with a knee injury. And with the knee injury, with the uncertainty around Stefon Diggs heading into 2025, it makes sense for the Texans to extend Stefon Diggs. And it might not have made sense for them to extend him even if he had played really well throughout the course of the 2024 season, because there'd be a lot of suitors and a lot of bidders in what was a little bit of a down free agency class. So ultimately, the Texans sent a future 2025 draft pick, a second-round pick for Stefon Diggs to help in 2024. There was no thought about 2025 and beyond when they made that trade. That was about helping the 2024 season. And I'm okay with that. I liked the move at the time. I didn't love trading back out of the first round, but once you ended up with Diggs, that ended up being a decent enough move. It was indeed a risky move by the Texans because it was a one-year situation that they signed up for. And I feel like now at the conclusion, as the Texans sit here with $16 million in dead cap charge for having Stefon Diggs on their team, we can confidently say we don't want Nick Caserio to do that a whole bunch more, or maybe ever again in the future while he's the general manager of the Houston Texans. While it felt like a pretty good situation in 2024 to sort of accelerate, by no means was this push all your chips into the table, but this was a good bit of your stack, to stay with the poker analogy, that Nick Caserio pushed in to the middle of the table. And, well, it didn't turn out. Did it end up being a hand that looked like Caserio was winning early on, and then by the time the river card showed up, again, stay with the poker analogy, it didn't work out? That's kind of what happened. But it was a good risk for 2024. I don't want to see the Texans take that risk again very often. So if Nick Caserio, I don't know, had 2 second-round picks this year, I'd feel pretty darn good about the situation with how good Caserio was on day 2 last year with the second-round selection of Kamari Lassiter, as well as the third-round selection of Kalen Bullock. So I would feel really good if they had that extra second-round pick. I also would have felt good if they just stuck and picked at the spot that they were at in the first round last year. I don't know, maybe Brian Thomas Jr. from LSU, if they really needed a wide receiver, they could have stayed right there and got him, or any of the other number of wide receivers. Ladd McConkey would have been a good investment, Ricky Pearsall, but they made that trade way before the draft board shook out for Nick Caserio, and ultimately didn't have a shot at really the top 9 wide receivers last year. And so now everything has kind of snowballed off of that risk to go and get Stefon Diggs. The risk was if it doesn't work out in 2024 to a large degree, then you're going to look back and say, yeah, maybe I should have taken a bit safer approach, a bit more of the unknown with a rookie player and done that versus what they ultimately did. Again, I supported the decision at the time. I just don't want the Texans to do that a whole bunch more. So as we approach the 2025 NFL draft, I would like Nick Caserio to stick on that 25th pick until draft night, just to see what shakes out, what's available to you, and what draft offers you might have night of the draft for that 25th overall pick versus moving out early and really eliminating yourself from a good portion of that draft class, making your first selection in the second round. If they do it in 2025 with a trade on draft night, I'll pretty much be on board because the bulk, the meaty part of this draft feels like day two. But with what the Texans could have needed if they didn't have Stefon Diggs, it felt like sticking and picking was a good opportunity. Now, we're talking butterfly effect here. If they don't move back, do they still get Kamari Lassiter? Do they still have Blake Fisher for this offensive line situation in 2025? There's a lot of butterfly flaps its wings and changes a lot when it comes to draft scenarios and could they and should they have done that. But my big takeaway is it was a worthwhile risk in 2024. It's just not a risk I want to see Nick Caserio take anytime soon again, because it sort of weakens what he turned out to be pretty darn good at. When you think about some of the second round and third round successes that Caserio has had, Kamari Lassiter, Caleb Bullock, Nico Collins, Tank Dell, when you look at those and you think, well, you're taking ammunition away from him, I don't love that. It's worth noting the Texans multiple picks in round 2 in the 2026 draft. Don't dip into that if you're Nick Caserio. Don't take that risk. Continue to give yourself that ammunition on day 2. And plus, if you've got 2 selections in round 2 next season, depending on where the Texans pick in the first round, it's plenty of ammunition to move up for a draft pick next year, or in a more timely situation, trade picks next year. So my big takeaway from this is I supported the Stefon Diggs move at the time. It was a risky move. I supported the risky move. I just don't want Nick Caserio to take a risk like that a whole bunch more in the future. What say you? You support the risky Stefon Diggs move at the time, or did you maybe think, this was a risky move, shouldn't have done this, should have stuck around, got a rookie wide receiver? And when do you want to see Nick Caserio really kind of take a big risk the next time? I'm good with the big risks for a little while. Keep hitting singles and doubles, the occasional triple, and eventually you'll score enough runs. Wow, we've had a poker analogy, a baseball analogy. I wonder what else I can sink here from about 18 feet out. Oh, there's a golf analogy for you. Sorry, I'm better than some of that, not all of it. But let me know in the comment section down below, did you like the Diggs trade at the time? Do you lament the fact that they don't have that second round pick this year, which would be pretty close to where they're picking actually in the second round? And was the Stefon Diggs risk worth it at the time? We know it ultimately turned out to not be worth it over the course of the season due to the knee injury. Let me know all of that in the comment section down below. Don't forget the locker rooms, Landry Locker and myself combined for SNL each and every weekday at 4 p.m. You don't want to miss out on that. We've had so much fun conversation this week with you, talking about the draft, talking about non-wide receiver offensive line options in the first round. It's not good. Probably just stick to exactly what they need. Don't do something risky in the first round, Nick Caserio, as well as some other fun conversations. We do it each and every day, 4 p.m. Central Time, live on the SNL channel. That link's in the description down below. Appreciate you watching the video. Don't get too risky in your own personal life, but every now and then you do need to take a risk. Hope you enjoyed it, and I can't wait till we talk Texans again soon.